Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Talking Insights. I'm your host, Antonio, and I'm here to welcome you back to this series that we recorded live at the SMR Congress. Now, for this episode, we got to sit down with Brett Townsend. He's been on the show before, talk about his book, Insights on the Brink, but this time we wanted to invite Brett back to talk about this mix of strategic clarity and creative energy that's the insights leader and everyone else in the industry should have in mind. We talk about what it takes to turn research into real business impact. And also, we keep mentioning the book. It's a brilliant book with Tim Hoskins, so we will delve a bit on that as well. Tune in. I hope you get inspiration from this conversation and that we can all drive something forward with it. Now, without further ado, here's Brett. Thanks, Brett, for being here. We recently talked on the podcast about your book, The Insights on the Brink. And for those the ones that didn't listen to that episode, I just want to make a quick note of, tell me what the book is about, what inspired you and Tim to write the book.
Sure. So it really was just, we need to start having conversations as an industry because we desperately need to evolve. We just have noticed over the courses of our careers that there's a lot that's great about this industry. It attracts people from all walks of life and with all different types of backgrounds. But there's also a lot that is wrong, quite frankly, and ways that we just need to evolve. And so we really just wanted to start conversations. Obviously, our book has a lot of opinions about what we feel is wrong and how to fix it, how we can get better. But there's more things. And so really the two main objectives we had when we started to write the book was we wanted to start conversations in the industry about how we can get better. And we wanted the book to be very easy to read and very easy to implement. So there's a lot of books geared towards our industry that are really philosophical that you read them and you're thinking, that was really great, but I have no idea what to go do about it. And we wanted anybody at any level in this industry to be able to read the book and say, I can start doing that today. I can start to implement that today. And that was really what the point was. And a lot of the feedback we got has been, I was able to start doing some of the things right now, and it's made a big difference. And that is the best thing that we could hear.
And which ones are what are some of those steps that you mentioned in the book in order to evolve the whole industry? What are some of those steps?
Well, the first thing is we have to get unstuck is what I talked about here at SMR Congress, is that we're stuck in the past where this profession was originated by clinicians and academics, not business people who are responsible for business results and sales and revenue. They were not held responsible for any of that. It was about proving validity of methodologies. And so we have to quit thinking the way that they think. And so the biggest culprit of that is that we are too focused on methodologies. It is crazy. Now, every conversation seems to start with methodology rather than start with, what are we trying to solve for? What questions do we have? How can we get better? What does success even look like? It's just, oh, hey, no, we need to do some focus groups. We're like, no, you don't. Let's just talk about what the goal is here. Yeah. So we have to get away from that. And I think getting unstuck from some of the, what I call sacred cows of our industry, which is measuring demographics, which have been proven that they are not predictive of behavior, getting rid of Gen Pop sampling, because nothing is supposed to appeal to everyone, but yet we survey everyone to try to get some kind of consensus instead of really focusing our research with targeted audiences to our brands. We have to change the way we hire people. We have to change the way we look at narratives, how we look at emotion, empathy. There's just so much that we have to get away from that the book addresses. But those are the two main points that I hit on here in my presentation.
And you also mentioned the consumer-centric culture. Is there any advice especially for the senior roles, the management roles, anyone in the companies that can take some actions?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that the last chapter of the book is pretty much dedicated to senior executives. We don't know if they'll read it but a whole chapter that's dedicated to, hey, this is a partnership and we always have to be partners if this thing is going to work. And so a couple of things that we tell them is that, yes, a consumer-centric culture, while it's very difficult to do from the bottom up, The most successful companies have a consumer-centric culture that starts from the top down, where the senior leaders are the ones pushing the envelope on that. It means getting away from being product focused. So instead of saying, what products can we create? It's what solutions can we create for the consumer? Instead of how do we get people to buy our products? It's what is our consumer problems and how can we help them? So it's understanding that, which kind of leads to a few things that we tell executives that you should know. Like, you're not going to know everything about insights, but you can understand three things. What is your consumer conflict, which is what I just addressed. You have to understand what they're dealing with so you know how your brand can help. You have to understand the consumer beliefs about your brand and the consumer needs that are met by your brand. Because there's so many brands that try to stretch into these other areas because they have no understanding of what consumers believe about their brand. And consumers are the biggest guardians of brands. And consumers won't let us go in certain areas that we may think we want to go to. It's like the Marty Neumeier book, Zag, where he talks about, your brand is not what you say it is, it's what they say it is, the consumer. And so many times we think we own these brands and, it's really kind of the consumer who owns it. Yeah. But then just some other things about limiting the amount of static data that is required of insights, brand tracking and NPS and things like that. These are just data points that don't mean anything without context. And if you don't understand the why behind the what, then it's pointless to even be gathering this data in the first place. And just not having the top-down innovation where the CEO says, I want you to develop this product, because CEOs are not the target consumer. They are generally very out of touch. And it's not their fault. It's just the way it is. And so them thinking they know, let's do this innovation. Like, no. That doesn't always work. And then just, of course, like everybody, just more resources. Like, it's amazing how much is expected of our industry with so little. But then hold us accountable for the money that you give us. Because there's a lot of waste in consumer insights. We spend so much money doing projects that don't matter or that don't lead to sales. And that's kind of one of those other big evolutionary points about our industry, is that we've got to develop more of a sales mindset and realize we're here to drive revenue and not do projects or collect data. That's not our job.
What about narratives? Where do they come in on all of this? Because I know that sometimes companies, CEOs, everyone kind of ignore the narrative bits, but how can they be all a part of this? And because they're kind of one of the most important sources of insights, right? At least I think so.
Yeah, they've been ignored, but not, I think, deliberately. There hasn't really been a way to measure really great narratives up until recently. And so, because, what we typically do in our industry is we measure attitudes or behaviors at any given point in time, but we don't really understand what is driving those behaviors and attitudes and thoughts. And those are the narratives. Now, narratives have been around for a long time, but it's so much bigger now because of social media and the way that everything is connected, that we constantly have narratives coming at us from in our own head, narratives we're telling other people, narratives other people are telling us. We call it the continuous effect of narratives. And so we have to be able to measure what and tell those stories and uncover, this is the narrative behind the behavior we're seeing. And so there are ways, my former company at Questor does an amazing job at this, where it's not social analytics or social listening, but it's truly getting into what are the narratives through social media that we're seeing that do so much of the explaining behind that. And I think that's one of these next steps of our industry, is to, now that we have the way to do that, let's understand that better, because now we're getting to the motivation. We're getting to the reason behind things, why these things are happening. And it explains so much. And it can be used as a starting point before you even get going on a research project, so you know where to begin. Because a lot of times we're just guessing, when we do research, we're just kind of like, all right, well, we think these are the options, or we think this is what they are going to do. And so we put together a multiple choice list or something based on what we think we know, rather than, or we get into a segmentation study and we don't really understand how to start gathering that data in the first place. But these narratives allow us to do that, to be so much more informed before we even go into the research project, so that we know exactly what we're asking for, and then it has a much higher rate of success. And so we have a whole chapter just on narratives and examples of how narratives have worked and how narratives, the lack of narratives have been a problem for companies. And so it's something, that we feel very strongly about.
We're recording this on the second day of the SMR Congress. There's so much content, so much going on. There's the networking bits, there's the content bit, there's parties, there's things everywhere. Is there something that you hear around the venue or something that inspired you or potentially inspired you for a potential next book?
Oh, wow. For a next book? I don't know. I do have some inspiration for a next book. I haven't really heard inspiration here, but I have heard some things that have been inspiring for sure. And I think a couple of them, not that I'm looking for confirmation bias, but just have some of the presentations I've been in, I've heard some of the same themes that we're talking about. One in particular talked about the biggest skill that we need in this industry going forward is persuasion. And we talk about that being influencers and things and being able to get things done within organizations. We have to be persuasive and that's how we provide impact. And so I was very happy when I went into that to not hear, oh, we need technical skills, we need analytical skills. I'm like, no, we got plenty of that. What we need are better storytellers, persuade people that are better persuaders and things. So themes like that, I'm starting to hear a little bit more getting off of methodologies, getting off of these types of things and getting more to how do we create more impact? And that's very inspiring.
Well, there you go. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Antonio.
It's still available. I'll put the links in the show notes. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the Congress.
I will. Thank you, Antonio.
Inspiration, get some more networking done. And thank you so much again for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Very much. All right. And that's all for today, folks. Talking Insights is a production of Research World and SMR, bringing you the stories, voices, and ideas shaping the insights community around the world. If you'd like to be featured in a future episodes, share your story, or learn more about sponsoring opportunities, send us an email at podcast@smr.org. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen. And join us next week for another great conversation that moves the industry forward. See ya.